to see some serious shit.
The letters, that giant S, and I was just like, Superman.
The now legendary story of Richard Donner accepting the job of directing Superman the movie while sitting on a toilet says that while he was excited to take on the task, he was horrified by a script that was presented to him that was silly and campy and disrespectful to the character. And at that point, he felt that if he didn't direct the film and make sure what was on that page was not going to be filmed, then the Superman film series would be over before it began. Well, I think we can all agree that Superman 3 is the film Richard Donner was afraid Superman the movie was going to be. It's a comedy of errors, but just like Superman the movie and Superman 2, Superman 3 is a film which set the template for all other comic book movies to follow, although in this case that template was the bad threequel. Now, even if you sweep away the fact that, as the trailer says, Richard Pryor has come to Metropolis, and that he has the exact same amount of screen time in the film as Christopher Reeve, the major fault that it has is the same that befalls all third entries in a series. It's burned out. It's run out of ideas. It thinks it can dress the same ideas in a different wrapper and pass them off as fresh. And the flaws present in the second film that it managed to get away with, in the case of Superman 2, bad comedy, the filmmakers decide to amplify, mistakenly thinking that the audience had no problem with them. And maybe we could forgive Superman 3 for being a comedy, if it was funny, but it isn't. Or maybe it was, at the time. Maybe we actually liked it when we were kids. I think it's time to ask ourselves some hard questions. Because there was such a lack of Superman anything back in the day, did this film pass the bar when we first saw it? Were we just happy for something, anything, to fill the void? Did we accept Superman 3 for what it was, a movie that does technically have Superman in it, and that's okay? Or did we hate it even back then? Randall?
Yeah, that's a weird one. As a kid when I saw it, it still didn't make sense to me for some reason. Like, it didn't track as like a story, and everything felt kind of weird and out of place. Even up until the ending, which was arguably the best part as a kid, as the most entertainment value, which is the big robot machine cyborg fight thing. There's certainly a lot of special effects, and the set piece isn't that bad. You kind of at least can understand what's going on there. Still didn't really work. I found it to be kind of bizarre and just not quite as engaging or entertaining as the first two movies. I counted about 6 plots in this movie, and I couldn't track them even as a kid.
Or filmmakers don't come in and make a bad third movie. I think what happens is that the producers don't pay a whole lot of attention. The studio execs don't pay a whole lot of attention when the initial things are being made, no matter how big they are. And then when they become these crazy off-the-rails successes, all of a sudden everybody wants a piece of the pie. They all want to be able to claim this was my success. They want to be able to figure out a way to make sure that it makes more money. And so then everybody gets their fingers in it. You saw it with Spider-Man 3. I think you see it with this movie with the inclusion of like a Richard Pryor. Someone sat at an executive table and said, this movie needs Richard Pryor. And it was like, and no one at any point went, what? That's a fucking stupid idea. And they weren't even thinking like that in the original movies. They were just letting the people make Superman. And these things become accidentally huge successes, and then everyone does get involved. Then everybody suddenly does care, and they care about it making as much, if not more, money, and it all becomes movie by committee at that point, and nothing makes sense, nothing works, and then you end up with Superman 3, you end up with Spider-Man 3, you end up with X-Men 3, you end up with, all these movies that are very clearly not made by people with a clear vision of the character, but rather by a bunch of suits.
There's a weird thing where points in the movie I couldn't be sure that my computer wasn't emitting like toxic fumes. It caused me to experience the movie with like a brain poison fever dream. Cause there's just so many weird things that I swear to God, like two stoplight signals fight with each other. I don't know. Does that really happen?
Yeah.
Can we confirm that across the board?
Yeah.
And that
They
was
spent-
Richard
that
Pryor's
they-
hacking that he learned in a week.
Yeah, and they spent money on it. I don't want to get too far ahead here, but this movie, it's very surreal.
Jamie.
I must have, I don't know. I mean, as a little kid, like, you like anything that's just Superman related because, it's Superman. But, I don't know, it's funny, I remember a few times trying to watch it as an adolescent and as a grown man in recent years, and it's unwatchable. It's, where Superman 4 is a failure, but at least it's a noble failure, this is just an outright disaster, and it does make you just scratch your head and go, what the hell were they thinking? And I have to be honest, like, when I rewatched it for this discussion, I found myself, and I'm not being silly here, I found myself pausing the movie, and I'd get up and go do stuff around the house. Because I couldn't say, it was so hard to sit through it, because it was like, I cannot believe you dropped the ball this badly. I mean, because at this point, we have to, just for some historical context here, this is the summer of 1983. The first two Superman movies were massive hits. They made $100 million back when that was a huge deal. Like, that was unheard of. That's the equivalent of like a movie making $400 million now, domestic. So that was the only other franchise that could rival Star Wars, basically. I mean, Star Wars was still number one, but they were the solid number two. And you think to yourself, okay, well, they have a winning formula, the Salkings. So all they have to do is just do some simple, basic things to keep the wheel turning and keep people happy. And I don't know, for the way this movie turned out, it feels like you went out of your way to absolutely destroy a good thing.
Well, Jamie, perspective is interesting. What we should also bear in mind is that how many franchises at this point did we have that had reached threequel stage? I mean, really, all you had was Rocky 3 and Return of the Jedi. Am I missing any? I'm not counting James Bond, of course.
Had Jaws made it that far yet?
Yes, that was the same year. Jaws
that was a
3
bad
and
summer,
3D.
wasn't it? Oh my God, that summer. Now you don't really think about it.
Thank God we had Octopussy.
Yeah, that's right. It's true. I mean, I was born that year, the summer of 83, but I was born in August 83, so I had no idea what had just happened and how many people had died that summer of broken hearts. But the problem is, the summer movie season kicks off with Return of the Jedi in May, and a movie that is immediately on the highest level of production design, of special effects, of summer blockbuster entertainment, and people look at it and go, yes, that's the fucking future. And right after that, you come out with these movies like Jaws 3D and Superman 3, movies that just seem stuck in the past. They seem like 70s movies that don't have a fucking clue what else is being made out there, what the competition is. And that's the problem that you've got with Superman 3, which, we can't appreciate now, is the fact that it just doesn't have a prayer. I feel like they needed to do Brainiac. They needed to actually have a scene where at the end there's a big alien spaceship about to destroy the Earth and Superman has to fly up and destroy it. Just to keep up, just to keep relevance. So even if the movie had been great, if it looked like this, if it still had those fucking corny Lester jokes, I feel like it was going to be left in the dust no matter what. Now, the other problem, of course, is the movie is a mess. And Randall made me think about this. He said, do you know how many plots are in this movie, Phil? Well, actually, I do. I had a look at the movie, folks, and I counted. And I have counted
53!
13 It's an unlucky number, and it certainly is for Superman 3. I have counted 13 plots that are in this movie. Now, maybe you can make the argument that some of them are connected. Some of them are just plot strands. But still, 13 plot strands in a 2-hour movie, I think we'll be able to make the argument this film cannot sustain and do justice to them all. Now, here's the game, folks. For you to play at home, and for gentlemen here, I want you all to guess how many plots there are, and then I'll pick up the pieces.
The prize is an all-expenses trip to South America.
So, Randall, it's your go first.
Okay, the first one was Richard Pryor extorting money from his own company, which is the setup of its own movie in itself, in my opinion. The second one was Robert Vaughn catching an employee stealing money and then blackmailing him using his newly acquired computer science. 3 was they have to seize a special computer that's supposedly untraceable in Smallville so they can hack a weather satellite that inexplicably controls the weather. And then 4 was a secret alien is going to attend his high school reunion. And then 5 is the creation of a fake element to kill a superhero. Plot 6 was building a supercomputer that's like magic. It's not even really a computer anymore. It does things that I don't think any sort of technology can do. And then monopolizing big oil. So I counted 7.
So you got 7 out of 13. Can anybody else add any to that, just before I give you the correct answer?
A couple wins a trip to South America through their work and is utterly destroyed as everything goes wrong.
There's also like asshole Superman and the public's like complete change of heart to this guy. Let's see what else. I have 3 words written down here in my notes. Life of Brad, which is a completely movie all to its own.
That's a whole other thing.
That is a whole other thing. There's obviously the Lana Lang story arc about her wanting to leave leave Smallville and yearn for better things. There's the story of her little boy. I forget his name. Ricky, who is basically the clingiest little SOB ever imaginable.
This is all really good. You are missing one, and it's the big one of all, and it's that when the Webster Evil Corporation takes over the oil. Now, it's never explained how they do it, but I think they stop the pumps from pumping, and they do manage to get all of these super tankers that are on their way with the oil, and they just manage to put them in the middle of the ocean, except for one, which is going the wrong way. But because of this, people start going crazy. I mean, there is one particularly hilarious scene where there is a traffic pile-up at the gas station, and 2 guys immediately start having a very unconvincing fight out of their cars, and the poor wife runs into the diner to try and stop and call the police in, and people are basically going crazy. Now, it should build from there, and we should see scenes of the city on fire and people being murdered for gas and people having petrol pumps shoved down their mouths and things, and it doesn't happen because immediately after the supercomputer is blown up, everything's fine again. We get a scene of just one guy like driving up to the petrol station, and he says, "Hey, give her a tank full of good stuff." And it's just like, I'm sorry, you would not have had time to even realise that everything's okay again. I guess that one tanker made it to shore at this point. Maybe that's what it is. Even though you can't just have Superman blow oil back into a ship and it work like that. I'm pretty sure the ship would blow up. But on top of that, yes, there is this also briefly mentioned subplot where they actually try to give the computer himself an arc at the end because it wants to live! So it just comes alive, but it never gets a chance to, so we never find out what's going on. Justin's reminded me, just by adding the couple, that's 14 now. 14! 14, folks. 14 fucking plots. Spider-Man 3 is looking pretty sweet right now. And that is something that I can't retract. But we have to give the film its due, don't we? It's not like they don't warn you. It's not like a Spider-Man 3, where I think it actually starts like a Spider-Man movie, and it just very, very evilly, slowly unfolds and builds into this unholy abomination. And by that point, you've sat there for an hour, you've spent your money, and you can't get up. You can't. But right from the start of the movie, it starts with... Jamie, what does it start with?
Nothing screams epic adventure than the welfare office. There's not the epicness of Superman, though. The dun 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 dun, the theme. It's just like, it just sort of fades in after the Warner Brothers logo, and then we're at the welfare office. And you're like, yeah, Superman! Okay. And then,
Unemployed.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then...
You've reminded me of the trailer line. The trailer opens with the line...
When it's time for adventure, it's time for Superman.
It's weird also. I just want to mention this briefly. We were talking about how this movie didn't have a prayer. They really, really did themselves no favour. Now, the trailer hides the opening sequence, and it doesn't let you in for just how much Pryor and how little Superman is in the movie and how much bad comedy. But what it does, and I think this must have been because they were so terrified of people actually thinking that Richard Pryor, America's favourite comedy superstar, was actually playing a villain, a black man playing a bad guy in this movie, that, like no other trailer before or since, they spoil the whole movie. I don't know if you've ever seen the trailer for Superman 3 out there, folks, but it is something to be seen. They spoil everything.
You're going to go down in history as the man who killed Superman.
No.
Thank you, brother.
Superman 3.
Watch the trees.
And you have no reason, even out of mild curiosity, to see this movie. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Before we go on to Pryor's arc, we do have to deal with that opening sequence. And I just need to ask a question, guys. Look, stuff is happening. It's all comedy hijinks. I will excuse a lot. I will excuse the fact that the Superman logo and the title comes up on 3 fallen telephone boxes and a rollerblader. I'll excuse it. I'll excuse the penguins on fire. But what I can't excuse is the fact that we have the perfect opportunity to see Superman doing his thing. We get some bank robbers, they shoot up a bank, they run out of the bank with the money, and they walk off. Right after that, because of all their confusion, a car crashes into a fire hydrant, which supposedly rips open the bottom of the car, I guess, and allows water to pour in like the fucking Titanic. And then Clark walks by. Now, does Clark have super hearing or not? Like, is it constant or does he turn it on and off? Because I just have a hard time understanding why he lets those bank robbers get away, or that he didn't hear them. They get away with the money. Crime is rampant in Metropolis, and Superman is not doing his job properly.
To be fair, he was getting a newspaper.
Oh, well, that...
You can't expect him to get the paper and stop crime at the same time.
Let's not have unrealistic expectations put on this character.
It's just that I don't know. It's just the over reliance on slapstick, though. It's like, okay, we talked about this on Superman 2. I thought for the most part Lester did a really good job with the comedy. I know the gentleman here disagreed with me. I thought it was fine, but he just lost his freaking mind on this one, because to me the worst part is, it's even worse than this quasi cheapness of the opening of Superman 2's credits, is that they did the worst Star Wars knockoff of, the credits don't even come at you anymore. it's a scroll like Star Wars over all the action, and there's this weird haziness that goes on. Did you guys notice that too? It's like, why do it? It just looks bad.
I honestly think I honestly think someone in post-production was trying to burn the film, and he only got a quarter of the way through.
That's all he's found out.
I don't know. It's all wasted time throughout the whole movie, and the opening sequence sort of sets that pace. Like, you've got this big, long, 10-minute opening sequence that doesn't establish anything. It doesn't take an opportunity to establish anything that's going to come in the film. It doesn't do anything. It's just a bunch of noise. And it doesn't feel to me like, oh, the sky's the limit, we can do whatever we want. It felt like, literally, we don't know what we're doing here for part 3. So just, what can you put on film that will get us to the end of the movie?
But the final thing, and this is something that you were all picking up on, why doesn't it open like the other 2 movies? Well, if you saw it on television in the 80s, yes, it does. For those of you who don't know, because I don't assume that you do, the television version, to stretch it out as much as they could to an agonizing 140 minutes, I believe the television version is, and I own it, the movie actually does open with space credits. And to be completely frank about it, it is the credits from the theatrical version just put over space. I believe just the footage from the Superman the movie when he's going on his 12-year journey. So they just put the credits over there. They use the Superman theme tune. It opens like a Superman movie. And then, bam, we're in the welfare office. I'm not quite sure what's worth.
I will say, okay, about the opening, that there is one very funny bit that's intentionally funny, that is well directed, it is perfectly shot, the comic timing is dead on, and no one will disagree about that, is that when Clark is pitching his idea for the go to his high school reunion, and I don't know the exact dialogue, but he basically says, like, I think it's a fascinating story, Mr. White, about how someone from Smallville like me even someone like me can come to a big city and become a
metropolis sophisticate.
Thank you.
Sophisticate.
And then everyone stops what they're doing in this wide shot and just looks up at him like, really? Do you realize what you just said? And then like a second later, they go back to what they're doing. I was like, all right, that was funny. That was like, good job, Lester. You pulled that one off. One funny joke in 2 hours.
I mean, the biggest actually betrayal, I think, in the opening sequence, now I really think about it, is nothing to do with Clark or Superman. It's to do with Jimmy. Jimmy forgot his camera. Like, I know it's a joke in the movie, but anybody who knows something about Superman and Superman lore knows Jimmy, especially at this point in his career, and you've got to imagine it's been a few years, because Mark McClure is rapidly aging in these films. He's no kid anymore. He is the photographer. He is the Superman photographer at this point, and he forgot his camera.
Well, it feels like it's supposed to be like a story arc. There's another story arc, Phil, that you can add to your list. It's like Jimmy doesn't have his camera and he's having to, prove himself again to Mr. White from getting fired. But it's like, they don't really do anything with that either.
You're right. Jimmy is trying very much to have an arc. So, luckily, fate drops in his and Clark's lap as they're on their way to Smallville. A chemical plant fire. And unfortunately, this is where Jimmy's story is cut to a short and tragic end. As Jimmy, unfortunately, is fucking... Well, let's start from the top. Okay, so this chemical plant goes on fire. And what I want to ask, first of all, guys, is that there are a few set pieces in the Superman movies where Superman does what he does best. Not fighting people, rescuing people. And this is a big set piece. So, as far as the rescue set pieces of the series, how does this, where does this stack for you? Because I'm going to be honest, I really like it. What I really like is the idea, they really do play up the fact that this is a job for Superman. This is a job that no other superhero in the DC universe, assuming they existed in this film series, could do. Superman makes it rain. He creates water from the sky. And I think that is a pretty cruel idea. I don't know if it would put out that fire, but I think it's an insanely cool idea.
Absolutely. But the best part, the one I thought, honestly, it's the most realistic, it may be the most realistic moment of any Superman movie, arguably, besides Superman Returns, where like he's flying and like people stop with it and goes, "Oh, it's Superman!" Like, is when he flies down and there's the guy who's the head of the rescue, and he starts barking orders, and he goes, oh, no, no, no. And he looks at him, like, what are you doing? Oh, it's you. Well, thank God you're here. And he just goes back to what he's doing. Like, I like that. Like, this world is so used to him. They can say something as simple as, oh, it's you. And they're not like, that was a great moment. Did anybody else notice that? Or just, I was like, again, like, okay, it's a little thing, but you know what? Again, the little things can make up for well, it doesn't make up for the lack of mistakes in this movie, but it's a really great little moment.
Jamie, I agree. I mean, that's one thing that even though the tone is way off for the most part, Reeve is nailing it. And at this point in the movie, I don't know if they shot this early on, but he hasn't quite given up on everything yet. And I think a lot of that is owed to some of the spillover from the Donner stuff. In fact, I think all of it really is. Like, Robert Painter is the director of photography here, and he shot about half of the second movie on top of Jeffrey Unsworth, who shot the first one. And so he is pretty well versed in the look of the movies. He's able to really carry, and it's no small task. He's able to make the movie look how we'd expect it to look. So we're not seeing the huge disruptions visually that we should be seeing, and I think that lends a lot of credibility, to Lester's weird vision of this movie. Like, we'll see some really great stuff in here, special effects wise, and the scope and the photography and the handling of all these elements that we'll see go very, very wrong in the next movie. And here they're still handled really well because this again is all spillover from the original production.
I mean, notice how we haven't even mentioned the big plot hole in this chemical plant fire sequence, which is, wasn't the plant asking for trouble by stockpiling tons of unstoppable acid? What's it for? What does it do?
Well, you know what the biggest plot hole is, though, buddy? Is like, okay, they're like, oh wait, oh my God, we've got to cool these things down, or else the place is gonna blow up. There's nothing you can do. Okay, Superman has the power of cold breath. Couldn't the end? It's just, I watched that last week. I was like, this is needlessly stupid. The whole lake thing. Like,
he won't breathe on the acid canisters, but he'll fly a mile over and use that exact power to freeze a lake.
I think the asshole Superman started way before they tinkered with him. He's just trying to excuse not to work, like, oh, I gotta go to the lake, bye.
Would he blow the flasks over? I don't know if he used the breath. I don't know what it is. I never thought about that before.
I want to state, this is the setup of acid in this movie, and acid is used so much throughout the rest of the movie. It's actually a theme, and I don't know what the theme is, but it's there. And we're going to hear about it a lot.
Oh, right. I am intrigued. Well, stay tuned, folks. But speaking of Superman, before he's an arsehole, there's something that I have to ask. And I'm thinking about this as Clark is on the bus making his nostalgic pilgrimage to Smallville. What is Superman's job and obligation at this point? Because, he's sitting there on the bus off to Smallville for a story, and I'm thinking, okay, I know you have to keep up the Clark charade, but at the same time, you're Superman. So shouldn't you be out saving lives around the world? Saving people, sitting up in space, listening for the world's cries? Obviously, you'd find out about the chemical plant fire, but he finds out about it by accident in this movie. If he hadn't been going to Smallville, they're fucked! So, you guys tell me, what is Superman's obligation to the world at this point? Is he supposed to be saving everybody round the clock 24/7?
I think he's entitled to a break. I mean, that's what I view it as, but that's a good point, actually.
He doesn't work that way in these films. The Superman in these films only helps people that he happens to come across. I mean, I'm trying to think. Did he ever go out of his way to help people? No, he only helped people if he happened to be there and trouble happened.
That's bullshit, Justin. You know it, and I know it, because in the first movie he patrols and goes out and finds people. And kicks ass all over the place.
Well, no, when he first came out, he did. He got the kitten and all that stuff, but then he just kind of quit doing that.
Well, we don't see it, but it's happening.
What you're basically saying is there's a scene in Superman 3 that they actually never shot that actually happened, where the same little girl's like, my kitty's in a tree, I hope Superman shows up. And the cat just sits there. He never shows up.
Yeah, he's like, sorry, that wasn't in my flight path.
This time she's got like bruises because her mom still doesn't believe her, even though like it's all in the news. Like, there's this guy who's flying everywhere. His name is Superman. Nope, my kid's lying.
I thought you meant it just comes, they just repeat the scene, but this time it's evil Superman.
Sergeant, you don't believe me. I swear, fly in with a big red cape and bright red boots as well.
What's the desk screen?
Quick as a week he was gone. Flew up in the air again, he did like a big bluebird.
Like a big blue bird.
You don't believe me?
With bright red boots.
Fly in.
Why don't you take the night off and go back to Murphy's Bar and continue what you started?
He was
I'll be
flying.
off in a few minutes and I'll meet you there myself. Mooney, first bottle's on me. Let me get my hat.
Okay, if it was evil Superman, you know what he'd do? He'd get the cat and he'd like sling it across the sky.
I was supposed to say, he gets there and Evil Superman uproots the whole tree and just flies off with the tree and the cat. You never see it again.
I think he would straight up just eat the cat, and it's not even proportionate to what the opposite should be. They're like, God, you're just horrible.
He's
What's
really
wrong with
hungry.
Yeah, he's
Spits it
He's
out
like,
into
"There's
the
no
Olympic.
He's like, there's no KFC around here. I need to eat something.
there's no proof you need to eat. What are you doing?
No, there's a line of dialogue in the first one. He eats when he's hungry. He's hungry for feline, apparently.
He was talking about pussy in that movie, Jamie. You know it and I know it. He was hungry
And
for
so
pussy.
am I.
Okay, that's true. Isn't it true? Oh, badum. Well, I think we've answered that. I think we've answered that question. I'm sorry, I think we have. I mean, it's already Kryptonite here. But it doesn't matter really because we know why Clark is going to Smallville. He says it's for a great story, but we all know the real reason. It's payback time. It's payback time for Brad. Brad, who was just this, as we've already discussed, not actually a particularly bad person in Superman the movie. He was just a college jock. He wanted Lana, and Clark did have to clean those helmets. He did have a lot of work to do. He wasn't lying about that. So, Brad isn't really an arsehole. He quite rightly thinks Clark is a freak for outrunning the car, but for some reason, when Clark holds a grudge, he really holds a grudge. It's funny because, as you guys pointed out something about Superman 2, which I had never noticed before, that when Superman defeats Zod and he looks in the eyes of his enemy, it's not Zod he sees, it's Brad. He has issues that he still needs to resolve, and he defeats Zod, and in that way he feels like he's vanquished his old demons with Brad, settled that score. But then he's faced with actually going back to Smallville for the high school reunion. Now, why does he really want to go there? He says it's because it's a great story, Mr. White. Bullshit. No, he's going back to settle a score. You know it, and I know it. It's got nothing to do with Lana. He doesn't even know Lana's going to be there, but he knows Brad will be there. He's been keeping an eye on him. He's a reporter, so he knows that Brad is still there as a washed-up security guard. He's going to go there one night and fucking murder him. That's the plan. Doesn't go that way.
That scene in Superman Returns, that's what he did to Brad. He would just go to his house overnight and just look at him.
Hey, who's that? A man at the window.
Obviously, I'm just kidding, folks. But the thing that I really like about Brad is that he's played by this actor, Gavin O'Harley. As we'll talk about, the problem with Pryor, and with most of the actors in the movie, is they're trying too hard to be funny. And Gavin O'Harley is the funniest thing in this movie is Brad, because first of all, he's got a naturally funny face, especially when he looks paralytically drunk. But secondly, he's not trying. He's just being naturally an asshole. He's really, really good at it. And it is actually really effective in the movie when you do have him in scenes playing against Christopher Reeve's Clark, the ultimate stiff, the ultimate nice guy, and the fact that no matter what, Clark will not say a bad thing to Brad. He'll just be intensely patient and polite. It actually works really, really well. And it's a quality that we've not had in the movies yet. And I just think Brad's awesome. That bit really works for me. I'm trying hard to get some enjoyment out of this movie, and Brad really works.
That whole story is just sad. I mean, I don't really... I mean, okay, he was a teenager. We all do stupid things when we're younger, and hopefully some of us grow out of it and some of us don't. But it's but again, this is a movie, so there's movie logic here. And of course, the movie logic is that if he was an asshole to Clark as a teenager, guess what? He never stopped being an asshole. You can't change and mature. And I don't know, man. You look at the situation he's in. Smallville's a small town. He's still going after Lana, and he's just every scene he's in. And maybe I misremembered this, but okay, is he drinking in every scene he's in, guys? This guy has a drinking problem. And apparently he's not only does he pining for Lana, he's a stalker, because at the end of the movie he just for no reason shows up in Metropolis apparently putting his ear to the door of her hotel room, making sure that Kent doesn't show up. I don't know, it's and when Gus Gorman shows up and gets him drunk, I mean, he's doing his job. He's not slouching around. He's a night watchman. He's doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing, and this guy gets him shit-faced. It's sad. I don't think it's funny at all. I want to see a movie where we follow this poor guy around all day, just what he does. I mean, this guy was the shit. I mean, we know people like this where they're the shit in high school, and there's a chance that most likely they're not going to be the shit once they get out of high school. And guess what? He's one of them. And some people take it and they get past it, and they move on with their lives, and some people just never can get past it, and they keep wanting to relive that moment forever, and they're sad sacks of people. And I keep using the word sad, and I know you guys get tired of hearing it, but it just is. It's not funny. I guess it's intended to be, at least. Again, this is Dick Lest, oh, that's how Americans are. But it's no, dude, I don't know whether they're way in your neck of the woods, but here, I don't laugh at those kind of people.
No, man, I think his insensitivity is coming from the fact that he doesn't give a shit about anyone or characterization at all. He just, if it's in his head, if it's funny, then he's going to exploit it. So his character is supposed to be a fuck up, and he's an alcoholic, so he's naturally got to be a complete parody of himself.
Yeah, that seems to be the point. I mean, the more confusing point for me is that Lana was... I don't know if she was just engaged or married to somebody, I've forgotten, but she was, queen of the prom, and the king of the prom was a guy called Donald, and they've divorced, but she has a son. Why does it have to be this guy that we've never seen before? Why can't it be Brad? Doesn't that make sense in some point that, they were together and they broke it up, so we can actually, be talking about somebody who's in the movie as opposed to some unforeseen force that's just disappeared off the face of the earth? I'm maybe looking way too much into this.
No, I actually thought he died. I didn't know they divorced. I must have not heard that line of dialogue. Okay, so they're divorced. That's the deal?
Lana has a line where she says the king abdicated, meaning she dumped him.
Oh, okay.
Or he dumped her. I'm not quite sure. Randall.
The king abdicated? Is that really the line?
That's the line.
That's Jesus Christ. The one thing about the script that we're noticing so far, and its inconsistencies and everything, we're seeing a lot of weird conflict happening here, because we've got these realistic ideas of divorce and real world ideas like big major companies that control things and all stuff like that. Stuff that the prior movies never dealt with. Because Tom Mankiewicz, the guy who was the creative consultant who basically rewrote the scripts, his philosophy on Superman was don't put him in the real world. And Donner's idea was give it what he called verisimilitude. Was make sure it plays believably, but don't make it real, because if it becomes too real, it gets confusing, because this character could solve every problem in the world. So we're watching a heightened reality or a stylized reality. It's a fantasy that has certain elements of realism, or believability rather, but it's not realism. It's not hard realism. But in this movie, it's all over the map because we're introducing these elements of reality, but it's even more farcical and outrageous than anything we've seen previously. So we're jumping all over the place with the tone, and I think it makes for a really strange experience because in one scene you have, you know, characters who are ridiculously cartoonishly drunk, and then the next scene we have a super alien in disguise who's talking with his old high school sweetheart about divorce. This is tonally just, I don't know what to make of this movie. As an adult or as a kid, I can't quite, I'm not feeling it, basically.
Well, it's like I say, Randall, we get these scenes where Clark's helping Lana, you know, clean up after the prom, and then he's out bowling, and there's a picnic, and this whole time I'm thinking, are you on vacation? Because I was under the impression Superman doesn't take fucking vacations. Where is he? How many people are dying right now because you want to get in Lana Lang's pants? This guy is totally motivated by his penis. It's insane. To answer Jamie's earlier point, the saddest scene of Brad is when he calls Lana from the bar in the middle of the day, and this is what he's doing with his time. I don't know if it's a weekend or he's probably gotten fired at this point from his job.
He had to. Oh my God, he had to.
They don't say it, but that's probably what's happened. He's in the bar by himself, and he's just saying, "Yeah, you used to best appreciate old Brad. 'Cause what else you got in Smallville? I'm gonna come for you. You won't find you. I'm gonna come for you. You go to Metropolis? It's only an airport away. I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna fuck you. I'm gonna kill you." And that's what happens. And it's
see, this is not a job for Superman. This is a job for the police.
These are their stories.
It is pretty crazy that, like, it's a really dark story. Like, Brad's gonna murder her. He's gonna rape and murder Lana Lang. Like, that's gonna happen. And it all kind of comically ends with Superman throwing him on a catering cart and shoving him in an elevator. Like, that's the end of, oh my God, she was almost raped and murdered in her hotel room while her kid watched. Like, it's dark. It's messed up. It's yeah.
What you're saying is that's why Lana never showed up in Superman 4, because between, like, the couple of years, like, basically Brad came back and got the job done? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know, man.
There is, for some reason, they actually do show restraint in some areas, Justin. For example, in that scene that you're talking about where Brad is thrown on the cart, there is actually a line at the end of that scene that they cut for some reason. It's just like 10 seconds, but, he flies through into the elevator and there's a woman there and she looks at him and she says,
No wonder they send it back.
You don't know. See, that's funny. People think that's funny, so they cut it. You know, let's keep the unfunny jokes, but let's lose the other things. It's crazy. I guess that proves that he's alive. I mean, I honestly don't know, folks. Like, whenever Clark in Mortal Guys throws, a bully into a jukebox or a friggin' pinball machine, or throws Brad across a hallway, I honestly don't know if he's broken every bone in their body. It's impossible to know. You don't know.
The weight room guy in Superman 4, no pain, no gain.
Oh God, do not remind me of that. That is Clark at his worst, but I'm not going to get sidetracked. So, we were mentioning here, let's ask the honest question. Lana Lang. At this point, whether you accept Margot Kidder's version of the story or not, Margot's version being, I said the producers were arseholes for what they did to Richard Donner, so they cut me from 3. Technically, they didn't cut her. She has one scene at the start, one scene at the end, but she's gone from the movie. Producer's version is, oh no, Lois' story is done. So we're going to bring in the character of Lana Lang. We're going to give Clark an opportunity to be a romantic lead. There is, I don't know if it's complete bullshit or not, but there is something to be said for that. There is something to be said for, can we treat Clark as a separate character to Superman? A man who is allowed to try and build a relationship with somebody who is only interested in his mortal guise. And also, can we accept a Superman movie without Lois? Is Lana Lang an effective, fresh new character, or is it just a way to have Lois Lane without Margot Kidder? Who's going to start on this one?
by Act 2, like, the plots start intersecting with each other. And I think this is the closest we get in the fact that, like, the villain, who's not really the villain, happens to be in the same town, like the same area code as some of the main characters. And they kind of get around each other at this point, and then they split off, and I don't think Lana ever has anything else to do with the main plot. Like, the villains don't ever, like, really threaten her or anything past this point, right? So Lana's pretty superfluous to this whole story.
Well, she's superfluous to Superman's story, but not to Clark Kent's. And it's to Phil's point of them treating the two basically as separate characters.
I'm going to say that in order for her to make sense, she would have had to have been the one in the junkyard, but we'll get to that later.
Oh, well, I mean, I was just thinking at the very least, like, I know that when they did Lana Lang in the animated series in the 90s, I think she only showed up for one episode. I could be wrong about that. But I know that she came to Metropolis and that she was very spunky and stuff. And, like, it would have been, like, I'm not going to ask this movie to shoot for the moon and, like, give me a really realistic thing. Just have Lana be somebody working for Ross. Like, have her be his secretary or something. Dump Lorelei. And have it be Lana. Obviously not an evil person, but she's his secretary. Just have her, be part of the plot. Like, just have her go to Metropolis very early to get a job. Not at the end. As it is, she says, I'm going to go move to Metropolis. And, by the time we're into the climax, she's on the train. And then because the power goes out to everybody, she's stuck on a train that's out of control. Which, again, it never resolved. Superman does not save that train, so how she gets rescued, I have no idea.
We see, like, her on the train is like the start of the movie, but that happens like well into near the ending. I don't know. I'm not able to really follow what they're trying to do with this character.
I can follow what they're kind of do. It's just your point is well made that they're hooked on the idea, which is a very nice idea, I think, that what seemed like small, insignificant characters in Superman the movie, Lana and Brad, they decide to revisit, partly because I don't think they have any other ideas. But the way that it unfolds, I think it's very natural. It makes it feel like, they always planned to do this, even though we know that's not the case. I kind of like it.
Lana, to me, her personality comes off so much like Kidder's Lois that they almost are interchangeable. She's neurotic as hell. She never stops talking. She does that mile-a-minute talking and just keeps going. And it just felt like they basically were just like, well, just do what she did. We just need that again, but we don't want Margot Kidder back.
I don't know. I mean, what I like about the Lana Lang thing, and I'm assuming everyone else does, is that you give Clark Kent someone who's interested in him. She doesn't really care about Superman. She make their scenes of it. They have to shoehorn in Superman into her scenes. But she's not really interested. I mean, she likes him. It's like meeting a celebrity. Oh my God, come to dinner. I'll meet my family, blah, blah, blah. But she's really interested in Clark. That's where her attention is. And she's the one who's known him for years and years since, depending on the comic book lore, they grew up together, and clearly Donner's movie was pretty much following that a little bit, but loosely, that they knew each other in high school and stuff like that. So I like that, she's the girl that got away to Clark. I mean, I like that, even though, yes, it is a huge gap in that it completely it absolutely cancels out the entire tension of Superman 2, which was, of course, that you have to give up your own happiness of having love in order to do the right thing and be the better man, the Superman, if you will. They completely blow that over, and that is annoying. But, Annette O'Toole, she was really good in it. I mean, I did like her.
Let's go back to Metropolis. Because Richard Pryor has come to Metropolis. So, I just think to ask a basic question, guys. Search deep in the heart of your souls and answer me this. Is there a single moment in this film where Richard Pryor's character is funny to you?
No.
That scene where he lights himself on fire, that was intense. Oh, wait, that was the real Richard Pryor. Well, I mean, the problem is that, okay, so he was popular, he was this big comedy star for his movies, and obviously he's a legendary stand-up, but the thing about it is that he's hard-edged. And, if you're gonna get Richard Pryor, actually, Phil, in preparation, because, of course, you guys listen to us, you know me and Phil, we love Siskel and Ebert. So I listened to their review of Superman 3, and I think Gene Siskel said it best. He goes, I mean, if you're going to put Richard Pryor in this kind of movie, you need to embrace it and make him hard-edged. And he's the soft, nice guy. And it's like, it just doesn't, I mean, yeah, he plays nice guy as well, but it just works better if you've got the edgy, like you don't know what he's going to say or do next. Obviously, you can't make it an R-rated movie, but you can give him a little bit of a pizzazz or an edge or something. Because Superman 2's got some edge. Superman 1's got some edge. I mean, remember, Superman 2, it got cut out, but it's part of the Lester footage. They kill the little boy. And it's a great scene where the woman goes, he was only a boy, and what does Ursa say? Who will never grow up to be a man. And it's like, that's edge, man. That's great. And they cut it.
I was just going to say, Jamie, we've already established this. This movie is R-rated. I mean, this movie is about drunken stalkers, about broken people, about superheroes that don't fulfill their obligations, that fuck humans, because human sluts. We haven't even got to Lorelei yet. I mean, there's a lot of R-rated stuff going on in this movie. There is barely a scene in this movie that doesn't have booze in it. I mean, they cut down on the tobacco in this one, but there is booze everywhere.
Well, no, they didn't cut down on the tobacco. That plays a big part in the movie later. But also, if you lifted out all of the science fiction elements of the movie, it would probably play out like Requiem for a Dream.
But I do think that the idea of evil Superman in this movie is genius. As the old saying goes, the brighter the picture, the darker the negative. As great and wholesome as, for example, George Reeves' Superman was, and he was like America's dad when he played that character. I've watched those shows. It's crazy how effective he is. Chris Reeves' portrayal of the character was, even at this point, 83, I think it's fair to say, an iconic piece of Americana. He was part of the popular culture now. He was Superman to an entire generation of children. And it does take balls to subvert that and turn it into something truly unnerving. And I don't know at this point whether there have been any other Superman stories on television that had done the evil Superman thing at all, or as effectively. But I can't imagine George Reeves' take on that.
And that's how we managed to smuggle Kryptonite into Clark Kent's cigarettes.
Golly, Miss Lane, he's gonna be puffing green smoke. What a gasser. Evening all.
Superman!
Hey, what's with the robot?
Superman, this isn't a robot, it's my wife, Carol.
Yeah, and Clark Kent's fucking Superman. Superman, what's got into you?
Some vodka and 2 packs of Luckies. Seriously, am I seeing fucking robots that aren't there? Oh, God.
Gee whiz, Superman, what can I do to help?
Hey, Jimmy, why don't you stop fucking touching me? Let's start there. This is a job for fucking Advil. Anybody but me. In fact, I don't even give a shit anymore. Let them all die. Let them all burn. Fucking children write me letters. Fucking criminals with fucking pointy hats always shooting at me. They don't know they can't kill me. They just keep shooting, and I keep bumping my head on my hips. I don't know what's going on. They just why do I bother? It's such a waste of life. It's a waste of life. Oh, great. I can't even look after myself now. There's fucking 2 of me.
No, I'm sorry, son. There's only one Superman, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't smell like that.
Will you look at that? Ground chicken! Ground chicken! Ground chicken! Will you look at that? I got news for you. I'm fucking Superman now. From now on, when someone falls, they ain't getting caught. From now on, when someone shoots at me, they die. From now on, I annoy everybody. I'm fucking Superman. Up, out of fucking way!
It's okay, honey. Push.
Hey, you, random person. Fucking turn this truck around.
But my wife, we gotta get to the hospital.
Fucking Superman says do as you're fucking told. Now I've annoyed someone. Let's see if I can kill someone.
It's okay, honey. Push.
Egyptian embassy in Metropolis. Gotta be something good here. Wow, 2 turbans and a fez. Fucking jackpot. Da-da-da! Hey, come back, chicken shit. You know what happens now? You shoot me with your gun. I stand there with my hands on my head, and I look like I don't give a shit. And then you try, oh, it's a knife now? That's very, very original. And now, well, oh, I wouldn't do that. You'll get brain damage. Oh!
I've never seen that before. He rammed his head into your penis of steel and now he has permanent brain damage.
You saved our lives though, we're very grateful.
Though I must admit you smell very odd today.
Look, gentlemen, I can't understand the fucking words you're saying, and I don't respect you, and I got other places to be, so why don't I leave you with Superman's fucking pal, Jimmy Olsen?
Gee, golly gosh, a man.
Fucking Superman, actually.
Good thing you're here. There's been an accident at the bridge.
Oh, there's no rush. I always get there on time. Come on, let's sit down a moment. You know, it's rare to find a beautiful man alone like this.
Oh, come on. You're just busting my balls.
No, this is busting your balls. You got big brass balls, but they fit in my hand.
Look, I'm worried about the people on the bridge.
Marry me.
And I think it would have been something truly special. Just something that you probably couldn't put on television in the 50s. So I think this was the chance where they were, to answer Jamie's earlier point, they decided, okay, we are going to grow up here on this issue. We are going to actually touch a nerve here, whether intentionally or not. They actually managed to do that.
Yeah, but is he really evil? That we keep using the phrase asshole Superman, but does he actually physically put anybody in harm? I'm trying to remember this. I mean, he's just a bastard who doesn't care. I mean, there's all these... I mean, I just chuckle when I think of the first change that Superman has, and he's with Lana, and he goes like, "Oh yeah, I'll get to it later. Let's sit down and talk for a minute." It is the ultimate missed opportunity. Because this, I mean, we talk about all these plots here. This is what you do with Superman 3. Because, I mean, that's basically the 3-act structure of the hero's journeys. The hero has to fight himself at the end, and it's like, okay, clearly this is what you do. You have him fight himself in some fashion. Okay, keep the stupid kryptonite, whatever. But, you know, I don't know, man. This is, he's just a jerk. He isn't so much evil, per se, is he?
Their argument for him being evil is that he's interested in sex, he goes to bars, and he hangs out at national monuments. And after... The bar of evil has to have been lowered substantially, presumably by Richard Pryor, since General Zod took over the White House and essentially took over the entire country. Because this isn't evil. There's nothing evil happening.
I understand what you're saying, because it is. I think what we're expecting, because I'm saying evil Superman, is the idea of him being exactly that, of becoming like a Zod-like figure, becoming a conqueror, maybe, and that doesn't happen. What the concept clearly seems to be is, what if Superman was a normal person? What if he was like Brad? What if he was like all the people surrounding him in that bar when he's flicking the peanuts? What if he didn't give a shit? That is the point. You know, what if he, he says the line when he's on top of the Statue of Liberty, "I hope you're not expecting me to rescue you, because I don't do that anymore. I just like to sleep around and do things for fun." So Superman does not care about anything. He's just a layabout. My response to that, of course, is that, in the first act of the movie, we were already there. He cares more about revenge on Brad and Lana's pussy than he does about saving people, except for the fact that, okay, there's a chemical fly. If I don't put this out, I'm never going to get to Smallville. I'll do this one thing, but my God, I am dumping Jimmy's ass right now. And he does. That's the point. We are already there, so I guess it's not much of a logical change. I guess what I just like is that, as you were saying, Jamie, it's a really unnerving subtlety to it right at the start, in that scene with Lana at her home, when she says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I guess you should be going." Awkward pause. "Oh, there's no rush." It's fine. Let's sit down for a while. Yeah. And it's just there's no even music, and just it's a good scene, man. I'm there. Yeah. It's just oh my God, you're right. I have to go. And then, What happens in that scene when he fails to show up? Does somebody die in that? I
didn't see an ambulance, but I didn't see anyone limping away from the scene at the time either. Let's just put it that way, kids.
Because to me, I'm sorry, it just looked like, because again, this is an example of them pussing it. It looks like just a bunch of logs fall in a dry riverbed. That's all that happened.
Yeah, I know.
As far as I could
was
see.
that the big emergency? It's like The Simpsons, like, oh my god, there's a discarded couch blocking the way. Like 20 people have to watch what's going on, what to do. That's what it felt like. Okay, but here, honestly, jokes aside, I guess my issue is that everyone talks about the big fight scene in the the garage, the dumpster, whatever place it is.
The big garage.
The big garage. The big garage. I wasn't
when
trying to be funny.
Clark tries to start his high school band again in the garage, and they all get in a fight and break up. And he's like, I'm gonna go solo.
God, it's so fucking funny. No, but I guess what I'm saying is that, okay, everyone loves that scene. That's the scene everyone talks about. I don't think it's earned. I don't think it's that interesting because they haven't even fully explored the idea. He's supposed to be fighting himself. That's the whole idea. He's basically fighting his evil urges, as you say, Phil. Him being a normal person, but it's like, but then you've got the Clark Kent side of him who's like, no, this is what you stand for, and they're having to fight each other. But like, that would be a great, and it would be an earned moment if the movie was actually telling us that he's been evil, he's done evil things. He hasn't done evil things, he's just been a real person, he's just been an asshole. So, it doesn't have the same kind of impact, and to me, when I rewatched it, the movie, I just thought that was boring. I wasn't really interested to see. It wasn't because, okay, I know how the scene ends because I've seen the movie before, or even the fact that I know Superman, the Clark Kent persona, is going to win out in the end because Superman's good and the good guys always win. I honestly, I wasn't interested. I was just bored when I watched that whole fight.
I know exactly what you're talking about, Jamie, because it's a slowly paced fight. It's not like a real rough and tumble fight. It's just like, I'm going to show off a power now, and now I'm going to throw some tires on you, and then I'm going to slowly burst out of the tires, and I'm going to look at you while you do that, and that kind of
stuff. But any fight is build up.
As far as the actual sequence as a piece of action goes, then no, it's not very good, absolutely. But then this whole movie is just not an action movie, and I'll get back to that later. But what we're here for is Reeve on Reeve. We're solidifying the theory here that the film is treating them as different characters. You have the disturbing sight of Clark choking his alter ego to death. Very, very violently. Again, this is not for children. This is R-rated. I mean, at the very least, they make the evil Superman disappear. It would have been a lot more ballsy to just have him drop to the floor as a cold corpse. But they don't do that. And then, to top it off, you can't deny this, they do have the most iconic shirt rip in Superman history. Period. That's just an amazing moment. And I feel like if the movie wasn't working in that scene, then I wouldn't feel anything during that moment. But I feel like it does. And maybe it's just because I really am a fan of the way that they portray the evil Superman's look. The costume, for whatever reason, is degraded. I guess he's just not washed it, but it doesn't look very clean.
He looks like? He looks like Jimmy Stewart in like It's a Wonderful Life. He does. I mean, like he's just he's got he's rocking the salt and pepper. For some reason, being evil, he suddenly ages his hair, and he's got the 5 o'clock shadow, and yeah, his colors are way muted, and that's what I thought of. I thought of like George Bailey when life hits him hard towards the end of It's a Wonderful Life, actually.
Going back to the garage fight, the big garage moment, there's an open vat of acid in the middle of this garage for no reason. Like, Lester just loves acid. He keeps placing it. It's like the symbolism of the movie is this acid. I don't know what it is.
An acid
and
trip.
It's right in the middle, and it's just unattended, and it's got a little sign that says like warning acid. That's all that protects you from this giant vat. And he's antagonizing Clark like he's human, which is confusing but also throughout the entire movie, Lester's treated Clark like he's human, like he doesn't have powers or anything. But so this I think this is all like culminating into something, but I don't know what it means. And then he finally goes for the kill, and he spits this acid in Clark's face. And then Clark doesn't die. Clark doesn't die. He's clearly super powered. He just messes up his jacket, and he takes off his jacket, and he's like, alright, fucker, you screwed it. You messed up my jacket. Now we're gonna throw it down. And then, I guess that's the motivation for the fight. Like, that's the line Clark draws. He's like off the rails. Like, he's just losing his mind, and then Clark... the weird part is, like, the relationship's not really set up to be like, here's his moral side, who's a good guy who just wants him to like get back on track and not be an asshole anymore. And this one's like evil. He's got off the rails. Like, the other Clark's just kind of like this like sad drunk guy who's like, his AA sponsor shows up and he's like, you can't live in the city dump, man. Come on, like, get back to work. And then Phil, can I ask you a question? Or everybody chime in on this. If this is the big Fight Club moment where everyone's watching him hallucinate and fight himself, do you think he was in his street clothes?
He's so drunk.
Randall, you see this movie on levels I couldn't even begin to. I am so humbled tonight, I must tell you. I mean, it's just like, I wish we had the writers on, because they would just be taking credit for things that they don't deserve, quite honestly. They're like, finally, somebody gets it! I was like, you never fucking planned this, please. What I do want to say in defense of it, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's the same bullshit argument I used with the original Tron. Bear with me on this. The film was made at that really interesting time when computers were becoming integrated into the lives of normal people and integrated into businesses, and people were learning how to use them, normal people, and people were believing that this magic technology was infallible. We were handing our lives on a plate to machines to do our things, to run our traffic lights and things. And there is a film to be made about that willingness to allow yourself to be dominated by machines. Maybe there's even a Superman movie that can be made about that with Brainiac. But in order to tell it, you have to understand how computers work. And the people making this film do not understand how computers work. Now, there are some bits that I buy, like the supertankers. Basically, Ross Webster tells the supertankers to go to the middle of the ocean, to the middle of nowhere. And he's counting on, basically, all it is doing is that the computers are sending a message on the teletype to the captains of the tankers, and the captains go there because that's their orders. Okay, now that makes sense, okay, because it's playing on the idea that human beings just follow orders, they do what computers tell them, because the computers don't do things wrong. It happens all the time, even now.
What I always found interesting about this movie, and I don't know if it's interesting in a good way or a terrible way, is that the way the computer plot goes, how it becomes this like self-defending kind of sentient computer, this really always stood out to me as a pretty... I mean, it felt like a stab at doing Brainiac. Like, it always felt like, well, you were there, you were kind of like going the right way towards doing a classic Superman villain, this giant supercomputer, but holy cow, did you miss the mark entirely? And I never knew if that was like completely accidental or if they just went, hey, there's this computer thing in the comics, let's do that. And I don't know.
But the takeaway is that there are still remnants of Brainiac in the script, and instead of them making, and remember, the reason all that crazy stuff is in the script is because Brainiac's this like scientific supercomputer. I shouldn't have used the word scientific there, but you know what I'm saying. He's like this alien supercomputer, and so they can take liberties and have him be like this living machine that doesn't make sense to us. They can do whatever they want for the sake of the plot, which is pretty cool. And instead they just apply that to like normal 1980s computers as if there's no difference. And I think, Justin, that's why you're seeing this weird idea of like just literally science fiction, hard science fiction applied to just average computer systems of the 80s.
Like he spent a week at a technical trade school and then wrote Brainiac. Like, I don't...
And the weird thing, too, is that Pryor was allegedly his character, not Pryor himself, before Pryor was on board, his character is supposed to be revealed as Brainiac. He's this vessel or disguise of Brainiac, which is actually pretty cool because the original Brainiac that we're talking about here, not the, any version we've seen after the many iterations, the original version was a spy. So the idea that he's like the spy supercomputer is actually pretty cool and on point with his original characterization. So it sounds like there was at least a workable idea as a movie at some point, and then whatever the hell happened from there, they just made a rip-off Lex Luthor, villain,
was,
or like a low rent James Bond
plot as Superman 1.
I've mentioned before that I was once a member of the Superman Cinema forums, and I do wonder if anybody listening to this might actually have been a member of those forums, or still is. But you wouldn't know which member I was until today. When I joined Superman Cinema, I decided to pick a name which I knew nobody else would have, because no one else would care, no one else would even recognize or like this character. I chose the moniker Ross Webster. Because I love Ross Webster. He's awesome. I think he's great. He has the best lines in this movie.
I can't have anyone with me who isn't with me. It is not enough that I succeed. Everyone else must fail. If there's anything I hate, it's greed. I ask you to kill Superman, and you're telling me you couldn't even do that one simple thing.
Vaughn is the man. He kills it in every movie, and he does do a good job here. But even with nothing, he's literally given nothing to do.
For some reason, they do just make the decision to give him a sister and decide to make the sister scarier than he is, and go one step further, of course, in the climax, in a scene which I think frightened a lot of children back in the 80s. They decide to turn his sister Vera into a robot machine of death. This is 1 year before the Terminator, folks. We didn't have a kind of a template for what killer robots should be, so we had this with the hair on the top, and it's just kind of weird.
Yeah, the computer uses its wires to put like metal plates and silver makeup on and a wig on this lady. I just wanted to say real quick, Robert Vaughn plays this corporate asshole Ross Webster, and Superman 3 was released in July of 1983, which is 6 months before the TV sitcom Webster. So it just immediately robbed his character of every possible ounce of villainous dignity.
Time just holding the line, never getting caught up. Love was never brought up, it's not the thing to do. Ooh, it was you, then came you. You made me leap without taking a look. Ooh, it was you, then came you. You reeled me right in line, sinker and hook. Never thought forever was the best I could do.
But don't you guys think it's funny, though, that the Ross Webster character is almost a precursor to the Lex Luthor we now know? It's hard for people our age to appreciate this because we grew up in the 80s or the 90s with the Byrne reboots, when Lex Luthor became a megalomaniac who owns half of Metropolis. But back in the day, when this movie was made, Luthor was just a mad scientist / super criminal that did not have any legitimate endeavors at all. And here he comes. Yeah. For the first time, Superman is fighting Wall Street. He's fighting an untouchable tycoon. They never really get into it because they don't even fucking meet until the climax. And I love the way that Superman says, "Alright, Webster, the game's over," like he even has met him previously. How do you even know Ross Webster's behind it? Do you recognize?
He's like, "Hey, I heard all about your weird coffee thing and your oil and all. I've been quietly observing the 17 plots that you have going in this movie, and I'm taking umbrage."
The biggest betrayal of the audience in Superman 3 has nothing to do with Bad Superman, with Brad, with Gus Gorman, with anything else. The biggest betrayal is shortchanging the audience on action. And I'm not saying that's because Superman is only in the movie as much as Richard Pryor, so ergo not very much Superman at all. I'm talking about the fact that they actually set up action sequences in this movie and then they don't follow through. They have a sequence, and it is the big one, of course, where Superman is going to save Columbia from Mother Nature itself. Technically the Vulcan satellite, which is controlling the weather somehow. And rather than actually showing Superman doing this, what do they show? They show Richard Pryor on a friggin' ski lodge thing wearing a pink towel telling us how he did it. And I think we get one shot of him turning a tornado upside down. It's science, people. But they don't actually show us the sequence. And even then I'm thinking, okay, but you've still got an action climax at the end. You can still pull it back. And it looks like they're going to. The villains have gone into a huge canyon. I don't know if it's the Grand Canyon. It's a big canyon. And they've got 1 billion missiles ready to attack the Man of Steel, even though it's not going to do a damn bit of difference. But still, it'll be a cool sequence of him dodging missiles, loads of missile. It's going to be fun. And so the sequence starts, music swells, and what do we get? We get an Atari video game. I think we get one shot of him dodging the missiles. I think that's it. And I think the irony of this is that, as I'm sure people know, at the time, Warner Brothers Communications Company actually owned Atari. Now, I think this was during the video game crash, so I think Atari was actually about to become extinct, but still, they actually produced a Superman 3 video game for the Atari 2600. I don't know if it was ever released. I think it wasn't, but there is a prototype of it. But this is the definitive proof that Superman, as a commodity for film, has been taken over by the corporations. It's now become, what should be the awesome action climax of the Superman trilogy just turns into a commercial for an Atari game. And I'm not even talking about the logic of this sequence, about the fact that you can't... It takes the whole idea... You know how in friggin' movies where they play back security footage of something and the camera is in totally illogical places, so there's no the angles would be there? This takes it to a whole other level. Ross Webster is watching Superman dodges missiles on a video game that in... Randall, just take this over, man.
Yeah, they just cheat and cut away to the 8-bit, not even 8-bit. What is it? 1-bit? No bits?
Oh no, it's pretty. It's
nothing.
No, it was at least 16.
It's Neo Geo. It's pretty detailed, I think. It's not Atari.
Yeah,
but
it's even as a kid, you're like, whoa, what is this? Like you're watching a movie about a guy watching a video game.
Of course, perspective is everything, and we talk about what the movie was. The other question, of course, is what could it have been? Now, we can all pitch what we would have liked Superman 3 to be, and I'd love to hear that, but to give us a bit of perspective, what we're first going to do is compare it to what it could have been, because as the law goes, the producer, Ilya Salkind, did have an idea for Superman 3 before Richard Pryor came in and said that he wanted to do it and took over the story. He had an idea for an awesome cosmic picture that was going to introduce Brainiac that we've always wanted, that was going to bring in Lana Lang anyway, but no Brad, that was going to even bring in Mr. Mxyzptlk. And the story is here, and to do it justice, I think that I just have to read it. This was written by somebody who's not from England or America, okay? English is not his first language, and I'm pretty sure he has the mind of a 3-year-old. But I'm just going to read it out. If you can make it to the first paragraph without laughing, then I'm going to give you a gold star, but I don't think it's possible. So... Clark finds a note from Lois explaining that she has now been asked to transfer as a correspondent to one of the foreign offices associated with the Daily Planet, and how she could not stay in Metropolis, constantly being in contact with Superman and being in love, but not being able to handle the pressure, so she decided to move as far away as possible. This obviously leaves Clark depressed, with Jimmy and Perry trying to cheer him up. Then, Lana gets introduced as the new star reporter of the Daily Planet, who impresses Clark and they start to like each other.
Supergirl's escape from Krypton is similar to Superman's escape from Superman the movie, except her ship lands on Brainiac's planet, where he finds and raises her as his daughter. As Supergirl got older, Brainiac's love for her went from a fatherly love to a romantic love. Supergirl, however, rejects Brainiac, and tension between them soon grew. Supergirl soon runs away to Earth, where he adopts... What? Quit laughing. Supergirl soon runs away to Earth, where she adopts a new identity and gets a job as a gym teacher. Soon, Supergirl... What the fuck? So funny. Soon, Supergirl would soon make her debut, which gets Superman's attention at the moment, and they fall in love. Meanwhile, Brainiac looks for Supergirl and arrives on Earth, where he gets wealth and power. Soon, he finds out about Supergirl's whereabouts, Superman, and their mutual love for each other. Out of jealousy, Brainiac creates a machine to affect his personality.
Superman becomes violent and unpredictable due to Brainiac's machine, which leaves Supergirl in disbelief. Superman's behavior gets to the point where everyone wants Supergirl to get rid of Superman. Suddenly, Brainiac appears in front of Supergirl with an offer that if she marries him, he will return Superman back to normal. But if she doesn't, he will make Superman the biggest enemy on Earth. Supergirl accepts the offer only to discover a weakness that follows Brainiac to his castle. Okay, Superman is freed from Brainiac's control and desperately looks for Supergirl. While searching for Supergirl, Superman encounters Mr. Mixie Spitlick.
The infamous imp from the fifth dimension wreaks serious havoc on the world, which leaves Superman with his hands tied, to which he is too busy to be Clark. Back at the Daily Planet, Perry is concerned of Clark's whereabouts and believes... Back at the Daily Planet... Fuck, I'm sorry. It is impossible. This is a game show.
You never backed away from anything in your life, now fight!
Back at the Daily Planet, Perry is concerned of Superman's whereabouts and believes he is often where Superman is due to his exclusive articles, so he sends Lana and Jimmy to look for him. Superman gets rid of the imp, back him, says his name backwards, then continues to search for Supergirl. Superman finds Supergirl and Brainiac, who was about to head back to Brainiac's planet. A confrontation occurs where Brainiac discovers that Supergirl contacted Superman with X-ray vision so that he could save her, which confirms that Supergirl really loves Superman.
Brainiac then traps Superman in an energy cage and takes Supergirl with him to the medieval past, where Brainiac is a ruthless tyrant. He reminds Supergirl that if she does not follow him, he will use the machine through the time lapse and kill Superman. Back in the present, Lana and Jimmy finds Superman in the cage because of his super voice, to get them to the castle and freeze him. This guy has no concept of what a plural is. Superman, Lana, and Jimmy then follows Brainiac to the same era where Brainiac and Supergirl are at.
Brainiac learns about Superman's arrival and will not stop at nothing. Brainiac learns about Superman. Brainiac learns about Superman's arrival and will not stop at nothing to kill Superman. Superman, Lana, and Jimmy. Will not stop at nothing? Superman, Lana, and Jimmy disguise themselves as serfs and learns about Brainiac and his whereabouts. They head to Brainiac's castle, then Lana and Jimmy are captured by Brainiac. Brainiac then activates the personality machine, but the love between Superman and Supergirl is so strong that they could resist the deadly powers of the machine. Superman then escapes to the future, leaving Supergirl, Jimmy, and Lana in the merciful of Brainiac. What? Superman arrives in the future, where he meets Mr. Mxyzptlk again, and teams up with him to stop Brainiac.
Superman and Mr. Mxyzptlk return to the past, and the imp send everyone into another dimension where Superman, Supergirl, and Brainiac are powerless. Superman and Brainiac duel against each other as the White Knight, Superman, and the Black Knight, Brainiac. Superman wins the duel thanks to Mr. Mxyzptlk, and everyone returns to the present with Brainiac left behind and destroyed. The fifth dimension imp then breaks his deal with Superman and stops time with only him, Superman, and Supergirl able to move in the paralyzed world.
Mixie then breaks the street. Mixie then breaks the street and people into a huge puzzle and gives Superman 1 minute to solve the puzzle, or he will send the puzzle to Mercury. Superman and Supergirl succeed in solving the puzzle, then sends Mxyzptlk back to the 5th dimension. Everything is restored back to normal, and Superman is forgiven after everyone learns that Brainiac was responsible for Superman's erratic behavior.
Oh man, so perspective is everything. Now you know what it could have been, and I don't even think we would have got a Superman 4. I really, really don't. I would have loved to have seen Superman in a scene like this where he actually says, he broke the streets, the people! But no, that never happened.
See, that would have made sense in Superman 2 where he starts laughing, going, "You don't know what you're doing, son!" Like,
I think that would have made more sense if this was the scene that they had Richard Pryor explain, because they couldn't shoot it.
That movie would have been 2 hours long, just describing it.
So to wrap up tonight, guys, if you can possibly, if you still have brain and it hasn't been turned to mush after what I just read, what do you think Superman 3 should have been? Like, if you had the idea yourself, if they gave you $50 million to just make what you want, and of course this is following on from what your version of Superman 2 would have been, what would Superman 3 have been?
Let's see. Well, my version of Superman 2 would have ended with Clark just making the decision that, I'm going to stay with Lois. We're going to stay together. She knows who he is. It would have actually had Lois in on the joke of seeing that he's Clark Kent and her sort of becoming more attracted to even the Clark Kent persona because she's in on the act. And, Lana Lang would come in as and then we would, which the ultimate version of Superman 3 did, which is that she was always attracted to Clark, not Superman. I'd sort of amp that up. That'd be an interesting little dynamic there. You do the Dark Superman. You actually add another villain. You have Metello as the villain. He's someone who in 1982...
It's Metello. Metello.
Metello.
The manufacturer of...
Exactly. Well, I think they did the toys back then, so that's what I'm saying.
The time has come to destroy Superman, Metello. Now put down those entertaining Mattel products.
You always wanted a Barbie, Kent. Now's your chance.
Damn straight. That's a good one, actually. No, but I mean... We all talk about Brainiac, but the fact of the matter is that they only recently could they be able to really pull him off in a movie. I mean, they couldn't have done it in 1982. I'm sorry. So it probably would have been, Metello would have been the bad guy.
I disagree, sir. I don't think that there's any character in Superman mythology that's had as many changes to his appearance as Brainiac. And which version are you talking about? If you're talking about the Cyborg Terminator version, then yes, I'd agree with you. If you're talking about the animated version, then I'd agree with you. But Brainiac,
well, I mean,
he was a great guy with a green skin with a few dots in his head back when
But that's the thing, it looks silly. I mean, for the early 80s, that would have looked silly visualizing. That's my point, though. It's like he started to get the cyborg look. Didn't John Byrne bring in the cyborg look?
No. They got around the same time they gave him the robot thing, but they gave him that like the cartoons and the comics and stuff. But the important thing, though, is that they're not. The movies never adhered. Aside from the main character, the movies never adhered to the visual style of the books. They never took that generic, kind of like Indian architecture for Krypton, or that the rocket ship didn't look like a phallic weird thing with fins on it or whatever. They turned all this stuff. They got production designers and stuff to translate it into things that we've never really seen before. So like this character would have looked different, and the idea of him explicitly being an alien is not something that had to happen. I mean, like I said, he's first and foremost, the character was a machine, and he was infiltrating everything. His whole agenda is about, integrating. That's why he's green. He's not green because he wants to be green, or that's what robots do. He's got a green form because he's a spy, and he's fitting in with the aliens.
Something I always go back to that I would love to see a Superman film eventually hit on is to take a very small villain like Parasite and use that in a way that takes power away from Superman and forces him to then deal with a more human side of things, and forces him to sort of examine that a little bit more than he has, because, he turned back time. Well, you can't do that anymore.
I guess what we're talking about here is that Superman 3 was just going to be a tricky son of a bitch to pitch no matter what. So the lesson was learned, and coming into Superman 4, they knew what they were doing this time. They said that, okay, we're going to tell a story that's about something, it's going to be focused, we're going to have a super villain that Superman can actually fight, but we're also going to bring back Lex Luthor because he's cool, and it's going to work. Did it? We'll find out next time. But before that, these fuckers think they're going to get off the hook, and they're not. The Salkind saga is not over yet. Unfortunately, they still have the rights to the character. They decided not to make Superman 4. They decided to expand and increase the cinematic legacy of Superman by giving us Supergirl. And next time, I think the first time anybody on the web ever has, we're going to make an honest and earnest attempt to actually talk about that film and whether it succeeded or not. So,
can I bring alcohol?
You can bring that whole suitcase that Gus Gorman brought to Brad. You can bring that.
I'm gonna need it.
Go!